My name is Sounds, and today I want to show you guys how to synthesize a drum loop. As you've seen in the intro, we're just going to be using Faceplant for this. You can also do this inside of Serum or any other synth, but just because I mainly use Faceplant, everything's going to be synthesized inside of Faceplant. So yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so just a little heads up, I had to recreate this segment of making the kick because my mic was making some really strange farting noises. I don't know, it's like a squeaking, buzzing noise, as you can see in this clip. Sorry about my mic, by the way. It's been having some kind of weird buzzing issues. I'm trying to see what's going on. But yeah, just bear with me, because it's... So yeah, I'm just gonna make the kick really quickly and include this into the rest of the video. So we're gonna start by inserting some MIDI, and I'm going to set this to G0. Perfect. Then I'm gonna open my Faceplant, and for the generators, I'm gonna hit analog and click the sine wave. And then for our modulators, I'm gonna add 3 new groups first. So 1, 2, and 3. The first group is going to be called volume. The second group is going to be called harmonic, and the third group is going to be the transient. Perfect. Now for the volume group, I'm going to hit LFO, I'm going to click on the trigger, and for note trigger, I'm going to hit always trigger from note on, and then I'm going to turn the modulation off, and I'm going to make this kind of shape. Alright, so something like that. And then for the gain of the analog generator, I'm going to right click and hit INF. Then I'm going to come down here to LFO, or to the LFO, right click on the gain modulation, and hit 50. And before I do anything else, I'm just going to exit out of here real quick. And loop this. And let's hear what that sounds like. So it's a little bit slow, so I'm going to turn up the rate to where it sounds more like a kick. Perfect. I think I'm going to set it to 3. Alrighty, then I'm going to come down here to the harmonic group, add another LFO. Going to turn the modulation off, and make this kind of shape with it. Perfect. Then I'm going to modulate the harmonic of the generator. And it's a little slow, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn up the rate. I'm going to right click and hit 20. And for the modulation, I'm going to right click and hit 18. I'm going to come down here and adjust the LFO shape. Perfect. Then I'm going to add another generator. So a new group, add a noise generator, and add a filter. Do a high pass cut, kind of like this. And then for the transient, I'm going to add another LFO. I'm going to turn this off. For the trigger, make sure it's always trigger from note on. I'm going to make sure it's the same thing for the harmonic. And then I'm going to make this kind of shape for with the transient. And then for our noise group, for the output, I'm going to hit envelope, right click on the gain, hit INF. Then I'm going to modulate it. I'm going to right click. Perfect. And I'm just going to like slowly turn this up and listen to what it sounds like. I'm going to go ahead and turn up the rate. I adjust it a little bit more. Right click and hit 8. And I have the gain set to around 20, or the modulation to around 20. And I like the way that sounds. Now we're just going to do a little bit of post-processing. I'm going to add a new group and call this fatten. And all this is going to be is a shaper, a slice EQ, and a gain. And so for the shaper, I want it to be, or I want to add a little bit more beef to the sound. So I'm going to go ahead and create this kind of shape, like a square wave. I'm going to turn the drive down and the mix down to right about there. And let's see what that sounds like. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the drive and the mix. So the mix around 21% and the drive around 0.36, looks like. Alrighty, now I'm going to come in here to the slice EQ and add a high pass filter around 30 Hertz just to kind of clean it up a little bit. I actually want to get rid of those frequencies over here. Kind of like that. And there we go. And I'm just going to turn this down by 2 decibels, so -2. And I do like the way that sounds, but I'm going to come back in here inside of the slice EQ. Kind of adjust the cutoff a little bit. So for the low pass filter here, I went ahead and set it to around 12,000. And that is our kick. Alright, so the second part of this loop, we're going to make this shaker. And all this is a noise generator. And I'm also going to add a filter and do a high pass cut right around there. And before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and add my MIDI. And it doesn't really matter what note because it's just noise. And then I'm going to add 2 new groups in the modulator area. So the first group is going to be called shake, and then the second group is going to be called rhythm. And so for shake, I'm just going to add an LFO modulator, and instead of hertz, I'm going to turn it to synchronization, and I'm going to turn this to 1/16. And then for the gain, I'm going to right click and hit I and F, so that way there is no sound. And then I'm going to modulate the gain. So I'm going to right click and hit 50. Whoops, I'm going to solo this. Alright, so that's pretty much the first part. And then for the rhythm, I'm going to add another LFO and do the same thing here. I'm just going to hit synchronize for the modulation. And then we're going to leave it at 4/16. I'm going to come over here to the effects, add a gain. And instead of dB, I'm going to turn it to %. Alright, so now that we have this set to 0, I'm going to go ahead and modulate it. Right click and hit 50. And then for the rhythm part, as you can hear, it already has a little bit of a rhythm to it. But I want to do something a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and make this kind of shape. There we go. Something like this. Oh. Alright, so something like that. And I think I'm going to turn this up a little bit. And I'm going to right click the modulation and set this to 40 instead of 50 actually. And I'm going to right click this and hit 30. Now I'm going to hear it with the kick. And I'm just going to adjust the gain of the shaker. I'm going to rename this track to Shaker. And honestly, that's pretty much it for the shaker. Okay, so the next thing we're going to make is the hi-hat. So I'm going to insert a MIDI track and call this hat. And then I'm also going to insert some MIDI here. And the note also doesn't really matter because it's just noise. So I'm just going to do something kind of like this. Perfect. Alright, so now let's actually add some sound. Alright, so for a generator, I'm just going to use a noise. I'm going to set the attack to 12. Double click on the slope here. And then for the sustain, I'm going to turn that down. And then for the decay, I'm going to right click and hit 228. I'm going to go ahead and rename the group as well. And I'm also going to add a filter. and do a sort of like a resonant peak towards the highs. Ooh, it's kind of loud. So it sounds a little bit annoying, but once we add some processing, it'll sound a little bit better. All right, so the first thing I'm going to add is a frequency shifter, and I'm going to right click and hit 147 because I'm pretty sure that's where I had it set the first time. Then I'm going to add a filter and do a high pass cut right around 2000 hertz. Perfect. Now I'm going to add a convolver and search for, I think it was Erie something. Let's see. Erie loading dock, I think it was called. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's it. And I'm going to turn the mix down. I think I like the way 55% sounds, so I'm going to leave the mix at 55. All right, I'm going to add a multipass and set the fourth band to around 4,500 kilohertz, somewhere around there. And then I'm going to add a dynamics and do some upwards compression. I think I like the way that sounds. So the release is at 43%. I left the attack alone. The threshold is at -24, and the ratio is at 2. Might even turn that down a little bit. Yeah, so I have the outgain at -1. I'm going to exit out of there. So without the multipass, it sounds like this. And with the multipass, it just brings out more of the highs. Actually, by a lot. Alright, so let's see how that sounds with the rest of the loop. I'm going to go ahead and mess around with the cutoff. I'm also going to add a stereo snap in and adjust the width here. It's around 53%. Alright, and that's perfect. Alright, so I also went ahead and added another high pass filter and set the frequency to, looks like 1,264 kilohertz. Somewhere around there. Yeah. You can even tweak it to get the sound that you like best. But I like it around there, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. And that is the hat. Probably going to adjust the gain here for the master inside of Faceplant. So I'm going to set the master gain to around -2. Perfect. Alright, so the final thing to complete this loop is the clap. So I'm going to go ahead and insert some MIDI. And like before, it doesn't really matter what the note is, it's just noise. So I'm going to do a pattern kind of like this. Perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert Faceplant. Alright, so for the generator, I'm going to add another noise. And then for the modulators, I'm going to add an LFO down here and turn this off. Right click trigger and hit always trigger from note on. Have it going a little fast. Actually, this won't really matter yet. Let's go ahead and create the shape first. So something like this. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and add a filter as well. Do a high pass filter and turn up the Q here. And I'm going to go ahead and modulate the gain. I'm going to right click and hit 50. And then I'm going to right click the gain knob and hit INF. Perfect. And let's see what that sounds like. Alright, so if we just turn this up a little bit more, or the rate of the LFO. Perfect. I'll go ahead and boost this up a little bit. Alright, so I set the cutoff to around 844. And then I also went ahead and added a saturator. I'm going to turn up the drive and the fuzz. Both the drive and fuzz halfway. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another high pass filter. And then for the final snapping, I'm going to add a frequency shifter. So let's just mess around with this and see what we like. I'm actually going to play with the rest of the loop to hear it all together. I'm going to adjust the volume here inside the master of Faceplant. Went ahead and turned on the rate. Alright, and I set the frequency shifter to around -61. And I really like the way that sounds. And those are the main components of the loop. We just have a kick, a shaker, a hat, and a clap. I'm going to go ahead and rename this. Perfect. Alright, and for the last thing that I did was I grouped all of the tracks, and I did a little bit of post-processing inside of this group. So I'm going to go ahead and just close these real quick. I'm actually going to turn down the clap a little bit. It's around, I'll do like -4.5. Perfect. Alright, so for this group, I went ahead and added a frequency shifter, a snap heap, and then a glue compressor for the limiting. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn on soft clip. And for the frequency shifter, I kind of just messed around with this to see what I liked best. So let's go ahead and just I'm gonna go ahead and click and hit -8. And then inside of this snap heap, all I added was a shaper just to kind of distort the loop a little bit more. Actually, what I think I did is I just made this kind of shape. I turned down the drive all the way, left the mix all the way up, and without it, it just, sounds normal. And then with the shaper turned on, as you can tell, it's definitely beefier. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a gain and turn it down. Actually going to put this inside of a new group. And for the gain, I'm going to hit -1. So without the group, it sounds like this. When the group is turned on, it sounds like this. Just makes things sound a little bit beefier. And that is pretty much it for the loop. And so that's how you synthesize your own drum loops inside of Faceplant. I'm going to go ahead and bounce this to audio and see what the audio file looks like. I'm going to go ahead and consolidate it. Come over here to the warp options and double click the gain because it looks like I can boost it up a little bit more. Get rid of the fade. And there is our audio file. And that is our loop. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.